all these childhood friends and the friends of college years and all that. And I just want to, you know what it's like. You don't want to have to say, darn, I wish I'd seen them one more time, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Just nice to reconnect.
Yeah. So without family, well, I mean, I have cousins back there, but friends are just so important to me.
Sure, absolutely.
Not that you haven't made a lot of them during your life.
Yeah, 26 years here.
So there are some nice trails out there to hike.
Oh yeah, no. Well, that's a nice thing.
Got your backup just in case.
Nice.
Kind of
If my battery holds
where
that.
it started, with the trails. I don't think I can go on that property where my father hunted because it's private. But anyway, I'll just go wherever I can and learn some new ones. And luckily I got a friend back there who is a very avid hiker. At least on Facebook, he's almost every day. Here, I'm here, I'm there.
If it's online, it's true.
I turned this off, but I heard it vibrate. But I know I'll be buying some new stuff.
4 seasons.
Yeah, right.
Most people are doing it the opposite way. They're in New York coming to California.
Yeah. That's what I did. Yeah. Well, I'm for my both Park Service and military time. I'm so punctual driven, so we'll start right at 10 o'clock. We had some people who mistakenly thought it was at Paramount Ranch, so luckily, even though my phone was on vibrate, I picked it up, and Ranger Ken over there says, "You got a hike this morning?" I said, "Yeah, Malibu Creek." And he said, "Oh, there's some people here. I'll send them over." I think that article blurred it a little bit.
Are you finishing at about 12? Because that's what the parking people said. Okay.
Yeah. Well, some people, and it's understandable and okay, some people will kind of drop out maybe at some point, but it's not hard at all to find your way back. Pretty simple. Who likes to go see old movies or watch them on TV? Yeah. Well, it's one of the thing I'll miss most is the various venues that I'm able to go to. Anybody around here to see classic old movies on a big screen, and I got tickets for my former supervisor when I was with the Park Service and her husband, and we went to the Academy Museum on Thursday night, and Paramount Pictures did the most magnificent restoration of Clara Bow's movie It. There was a woman writer named Eleanor Glynn, and when she saw her, she wrote an article about Clara Bow's got it. Then I can't remember, the definition of it, but certainly having physical appeal was part of it. But the woman who introduced the movie was the head of preservation at Paramount Pictures, and I had to walk up to her. So after the movie was over, I went down just as she was standing up from her seat, and I complimented her on the beauty of it and the soundtrack, not just the music, but some of the kind of sounds like, have you ever heard of Foley art? That's where they, in a studio, when you see somebody running in, hard sole shoes over concrete, somebody's in a room going like this, and they're recording it for the movie. But I went down and told her that, half the pleasure of this movie was just seeing this work of art, not just the story. It was just splendid. I mean, it was dazzling. And I said to her, if this was a photograph, I'd hang it on my wall. So we're just about there. Of course, my watch could be a little bit off. But so who's here, maybe they think from the furthest away? Anybody? Los Angeles proper, or beyond Woodland Hills, or Camarillo, or? Oh, okay.
Wherever the acorn goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And do we have anybody here under 30? It just tells you, there's some of us still like to have a newspaper or a book in front of us. So, officially welcome. My name's Mike Malone, and I'm wrapping up my 26 years out here in the Santa Monica Mountains proper, if you will. As the article said, I came here from the East Coast, I believe, and I'm single. I've never had a family like children, and I have no siblings, and so friends are just especially important to me. And because of my age and my friends back in New York, some of them I've known since we were kids, and I've lost a couple of friends in the last couple of years, 3 cousins, and I went back to New York, and come on in there a little bit more. Are you on the hike here? Yes. Okay. I went back to New York to visit him in September, and I just had, you know what it's like when your heart feels warm and happy, and when you're surrounded by people who are important to you, but also I was able to, line up. I found a realtor, which was something you really need, so I can find myself a home. I told her I want some woods behind it. Walking, mostly on flat surfaces. We do a couple of little uphill walks, not for the view so much, but for the film history and location at those various spots there. So the first one will be going up this hill over here, so that's I'll hold off and tell you what it is once we get up there. And I have these large laminated photos, sort of then and now, and I had learned at the beginning when I came out here and started doing film tours, primarily over Paramount, because I wasn't working for the state, I was working for the National Park Service, and when you have an 8x10 photo, you're going like this, you're walking around. Oh yeah, can you see it? So now they're a little bit bigger, so they'll help you out. So we'll have various stops along the way, and probably as we're walking, those, of course you're free to ask a question at any time and see how good my memory still is here. It's sort of like live television here. It just rolls out without cue cards or anything like that. So hopefully you'll enjoy learning something about the park here and in its earlier years. So what we're going to do here is there anybody here that just came over from Paramount Ranch? Okay, good.
There's a few more on the way.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, we'll still be here for a few minutes yet. So I have some docents here that I volunteer with, and one of the things I need your help on is, like, when we go down here onto the road, we're going to walk down a little bit to the left. So I need some crossing guards and somebody in the back, and just making sure traffic slows or stops for us. So when we get out there on the road, we're gonna walk kind of almost like single file. Just remember, you're on a road. There's no real path that we can jump on there. We're just gonna walk a short distance up there for our really first walking stop. But I want to talk a little bit about here, and just a little quick timeline of the history. Oh, by the way, before I forget, where is she? Who's the lady who saw me in the parking lot and spoke up early on? Okay, happy birthday to you! You notice I didn't stop to pause to sing happy birthday. So anyway, the kind of quick timeline, of course, this land has been occupied for centuries by other peoples, going back with the Native Americans, finished by the Spanish period here, and Mexican period, and then settlers started to come in and establish their little homes in various areas all around here. And so in the beginning of the just the kind of the overlapping end of the about 1909 going to 1910 in there were a group of businessmen, mostly down the LA area. Many of them, their names were well known, just like we have ours today, who were, well, on the news sometimes, but you read about people that all around our area who are in business. But realtors, lawyers, business people in industry and all that. And their hectic life, I guess, in LA and the city, they, like anybody, you want to get away from it. I know when I'm stressed out a little bit, there's nothing like taking a walk in the park by yourself and just kind of, getting your act together, if you will, and getting your mind settled. Come on in there if you're a little bit, because we got room over here, so I want to make sure you can all hear. So, yeah, and if you want to come around over the other side here, let some folks come through here. Oh, hey, Robert. I thought I recognized you. How are you? Yeah, all right. My realtor here and friend. So anyway, one name that's still around, his law firm still lives. It's like at least 2 or 3 names, but Melviny? Did you hear that? Yeah. So these men got an idea, a few of them, that would it be nice to have our own, like, out in the country, hunting and fishing preserve. And so they got organized, and back then it was a different time. It turned out it was an all men's club, but the wives were welcome. That was nice. And so they started buying up different tracts of land here, and they cobbled together a little over 2,000 acres of property. And so when they got started kind of setting up here, because they needed more amenities and comforts, if you will, than the settlers had. So they built a 2-story country club, if you will. And we're going to stop where that building was because of a little film history there. And that's where it sat. It was set up on a little hill overlooking the beautiful gorge and the Goat Buttes, which are a little hidden right here. And they were known as the Crags Country Club, and they had more or less of a one-generational presence here. By the 1930s, getting into the late 30s, there just wasn't any new members coming in, I guess, and eventually for several years they just had a caretaker here. 3 of the members built their own little weekend homes, I'll call them, that they could stay in when they came out here, because this is just a getaway. They weren't living here permanently. And but I mentioned this in a little more detail is because the film industry was beginning to establish itself out here, and eventually they were wanting to go afield and get into natural settings and do some filming outdoor. And so we'll mention that a little bit more as I get along the hike. But for instance, Tom Mix, a famous cowboy actor, if you will, or actor in westerns, he was out here. Does anybody know the name Mary Pickford?
Yes.
Well, she was a major star in the earliest days of cinema, and she was out here for a movie that I'll mention. Of course, Charlton Heston. I'm keeping the titles to myself. Some of you probably know, but anyway, it was a who's who of film history out here, and that's when it really got started. The earliest film, basically William S. Hart shot out here, really the first Western cowboy star in silence, and they each, him and Mary Pickford, were here in 1919, and that's the oldest film so far, films that we've found. Who knows, there might be more. Okay, so we're going to do our first little show and tell here, if you will, and I want to make sure, I'll tell you what, let's come and get out, we get up. Karen, where are you? Yeah, come on over if you would. I want to employ one of my fellow docents here. If you just hold this while I So anyway, fast forward, 20th Century Fox came out here. Well, first it was actually Fox before they merged with 20th Century, and they were the ones that filmed the Tom Mix movie out here. But in 1941, they got interested when they we're really thinking of going over to Europe and Wales, the UK, to film a movie. Well, what's going on in 1941? You know, it's World War II has already begun in Europe, and in the summer of '41 they came out here and made a movie, which I'll save when we get to the location and all. So going even more forward, getting closer, you know, to our times, many of us, they sold off their huge back lot around 1960. And well, excuse me, I went a little further far. They bought the ranch in 1946, and that's when they started to establish their real presence here and built some sets, etc. But I wanted to mention 1960 around then and this sale, because one thing they brought here, actually a couple things, but for right here, a sky backing and a concrete pool, if you will, and this is where they would film miniatures. So the pool, it was called a tank, and when it had water in it, you know, they would put various like miniature ships, perhaps of a smaller scale, out there in it. Tora, the attack on Pearl Harbor is one of the more noted films that they did here. They even had some miniatures out here for some scenes from Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor from photos I've seen. And Dr. Dolittle, the Rex Harrison movie, the giant snail and the floating island were in this pool. And they had a reservoir behind the screen, and it was just very you know, well engineered. In fact, just recently I got to see actual documents that all these specs, if you will, on that, you know, over my head and trying to read it and all. But there was a sky backing, like a big outdoor movie screen, if you will. It was some 300 feet long, over 100 feet high, and it mainly had just scenes of the horizon, the sky, if you will. And then of course the pool was in front of it. So here's from an aerial shot. This is what, and it was right here in this parking lot.
Where'd they buy the property from?
They bought it from the Crags Country Club. Yeah.
So that was the parking lot.
Yeah, this one right here, right behind us. When you're looking, especially you folks right here, this is looking in that direction, if you will. So, refer to it as sky back.
Vibrant.
We'll get a little more close-up now. When they first, when the people who were out, mostly men working in the tank there, setting things up, they were wearing waders, if you will, and then you know, eventually they transitioned over in like scuba diving suits. So this is from Tora here.
No. Did you ever see it?
As I say again, that backing was over 300 feet long.
Looks pretty good.
Yeah. So the water, you can see, you know, initially it was about a little under waist deep, but then they eventually started to raise it up a little bit more. They had cables under the water for you know, things that had to move, a boat, whatever, and although they didn't need to make the water any bluer, from what I've read, they did, just so you don't see what's underwater. And they had those large fans there for, you know, getting some ripples on the water. They had what they called dump tanks, where they could just, you know, dump a lot of water down and help create more turbulence. And it was trapezoid in shape. In this way, you know, the water could better bounce off of the sides than if it was a round pool. And then next, here's a little close-up from the 1966 movie Batman with Adam West. Tour was 1970, by the way.
So was this guy, was that a blown up photograph?
No, it was
or
a
was
painting.
That painting?
Yeah.
Painting.
They had a multi-story scaffolding that was on a track. It was automatic, and it had different levels of platforms. So the painters, different painters were on these levels, and they're painting it.
How long did that take them?
Oh God, I don't know. Never seen that.
Could you just show that previous one again one more time? Yeah. That, yeah.
Sorry, I have to photograph my fingers.
So where was the pool itself?
I'm sorry,
Where was the pool?
it was right over in the parking lot here. What's that?
Were the people that were the set painters?
Yeah, they're just set. I guess that's.
My
I don't
friend's
know.
father did that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. They might have been a different term, but yeah.
Yeah,
they're just,
that's why I was trying to think of the name.
Okay.
Set artists or something?
So, you really can't see this scene from where we are right now because of the trees and all, but when you start to come in to the park, after you've gone through the entrance station there's a road immediately to your left that people go down to park for some picnic tables there, and and then right after that is the first parking lot. So if we were able to see right over there, there's like a little raised up piece of the land over there. Go from the far side of this parking lot, it slopes up and then it levels off flat and it goes over. So kind of between here and the first parking lot and looking in that direction was this farmhouse set. And it was used in a number of different films, but the one I want to note primarily was this man's very first movie after he became quite a sensation in the music business.
And that would be?
And that would be,
I'm guessing.
yeah, what did he do? He did like this.
Elvis!
Yes, Elvis. So here he is. This is the first time he comes on camera in the movie.
need to turn it.
Love Me Tender. Oh, I'm sorry. Love Me Tender. 1956. And of course, in the movie, if you've never seen it, he does have a scene all himself, as if he was performing on a stage. He didn't do, his whole full act there with his movements, but it was Elvis. I mean, he become famous, and so he, somebody just hooked him for his movie career. This is always my favorite, the first one I like the best.
Yeah. And what was it called?
Love Me Tender.
Love Me Tender.
Oh yeah, beautiful song.
In a hillbilly movie.
Yeah, it's right. The setting is post Civil War. He was too young, I guess.
Right.
I don't know if he had a deferment or, but anyway, his three brothers come back from the war, and unfortunately, I guess they thought that one brother was killed or something, and he had a girlfriend, at home there, and it turns out then Elvis and her got together, and so the brother was kind of, So I think that's it for right here. All right, so now we're going to begin our real journey. So this is where I'll need some of the docents here to assist to make sure we have a safe walk, okay? Hopefully everybody from Paramount Ranch made it.
They're still coming.
Oh, really?
They're at the entrance trying to get in. I guess there's a big line.
Oh, that's a shame. Oh, well,
I'll hang back.
okay, yeah, if you would.
Leave the breadcrumbs.
Oh yeah, no Bayport. Knew somebody that lived there. Yeah. I was actually there twice. First for 4 years, and then I came back and was there for just under 2 years.
The light is too bright.
Everybody kind of getting in here? Okay. right. So I stopped here because this large field curves around, goes up to the group campground, if you will. And back in those days that Fox was here, they of course had neighboring landowners, and one was the Hunters, and they lived up around there. And there's a house there that I'll tell you about in a moment, and right off the family campground there. So sometimes, you know, might have been Fox, might have been some other movie company. They just find that landscape over there appealing. Especially, you can see the tops of the Goat Buttes over there. So we'll get a better view, as I say, once we head down the main road into the park. But you know, the filming would be further up there, and they just got that beautiful backdrop. So in 1968, a movie a story that had never been done, and of course it's really great to see something that you know, a story that's never been told, and you know, whatever it might be, you know, it's just like so fresh. Wow, I've never seen anything like that. You know, that's really great. Like Avatar, for instance, is, you know, coming out now. So this was the first Planet of the Apes in 1966, based on a novel written by a Frenchman. I won't try to pronounce his last name, but Pierre Boulle. Okay, thank you. And it was just very secretive, because never had they switched, you know, what we see as the humans above the pecking order of the animals, if you will, nature. And so it was a role reversal, and the primates, if you will, they were now, you know, occupying, and you know, they were lording over everything else. And then they had the subhumans, and they were out chasing them and sometimes shooting and killing them and all. So Charlton Heston, the star of the movie, and his other fellow astronauts, they're in space at the beginning, and then they're coming down, and you know, I don't know, I can't remember how many, you know, almost thousands of years they went into the future, but anyway, they landed into a lake. And does anybody know where that lake actually is?
Malibu?
No. Lake Powell. Lake Powell. Yeah, Lake Mead over there in Nevada, in that area, Arizona. So that's where they crash landed in our future national park there, and all. So then once they get on the land, they're trekking through that area there of beautiful rock formations, and then eventually they come upon the rock pool as we know it today. And we'll stop there as well. But the first time that they actually, you know, see these primates, if you will, was right out here in this field. They wandered out here, and this is where they started to see these, you know, subhumans, I'll call them. They didn't talk. And but then all of a sudden something appeared, and it was this: the apes on horseback, and they were shooting at all these people, and so everybody's just, you know, running and fleeing. And this is all a cornfield that had been planted out here by the studio. And not so long ago, it was early in the year, in the fall. But one of our docents named Brian Rooney, he's produced you know, just a great history book called 3 Magical Miles that he's going to be doing the 5th issue in the near future here. And he was able to contact really the last main member of the cast, because so many of them either passed away, and that was Linda Harrison, and she, you know, was kind of the female I won't call her girlfriend, but they just kind of connected up in the movie, if you will. And she's now in her mid-70s, I think, and so Brian got her out here, and he went down to Camarillo or down that way somewhere, and actually went to where somebody had, you know, corn, and got some corn stalks up here, and I went up and assisted him. So the scene, of course, they're running across the field, shooting, and, you know, Charlton Heston, the look on his face when he sees this, like any of us.
What year was that?
68.
68.
Yeah. So anyway, when they went skinny dipping in the rock pool, they had taken off their astronaut suits, if you will, and then these primates snuck in and grabbed them. So they had to do the old, fig leaf or whatever. So we won't go up any further, but you can kind of, as I say, see the tips of the goat buttes back there, and there's a kind of before and after shot. It'd be sort of like if I was waiting to do this tour, and all of a sudden all of you showed up, as if it was a nudist colony. That's the way they thought when they saw the apes on horseback.
They knew they were in California.
yeah, right. Thank you. So we're going to step over in a few other scenes of movies that were shot out here. So in 1946, an actress by the name of Barbara Stanwyck, very famous, and Ray Malone, her leading man in the movie. There were two leads. It was just simply called California, and a part of the storyline is that the wine business was in grapes and vineyards was beginning in early California. And Barry Fitzgerald, a well-known Irish actor who was in The Quiet Man with John Wayne and a number of other films, he was in it. So before this was a cornfield, it was a vineyard. And that is it there. It's a smaller photo, sorry.
Okay. It's very flexible.
And again, it's the goat buttes in the background. The movie came out in '47. It was kind of a story like in so many Western settings, the ranchers versus the, these vineyards, or the settlers. Okay, getting a good look. So that was early California, but the beauty of these landscapes is they could be anywhere in the world almost. Maybe not Antarctica or the South Pole, but they could take you around the world. And as I was a young boy growing up in New York, I'd see all these period set films, and so many of them are shot here in Southern California. But they were somewhere else at times, like the Philippines.
So did you make it down? 55, down below. But people said it's right. I guess it doesn't matter. Well, when we report to the state, we just put in the docents too. So, but we've got a lot of docents here. Yeah. I don't know if you have, but that was the 88. What? Yeah.
And I've got excellent historical information because of some of the people involved with making this movie that wrote biographies and various other sources. So it's good history about it. Okay, so we'll just take our time. We just gotta get up on that little ridge right there.
Yeah. Impressive group. We're gonna have to make a count as well.
wife or husband.
Wow.
Oh, this lap.
Give me a more down part when I get back east. Yeah.
How much takes it everything?
You like the challenge?
Were they goats at one time and they're turned into
The story is
Yeah.
goats, so they're natural lawnmowers.
Oh, yeah.
And they wandered up along the slopes there. Okay, we'll stop here in this area. Oh, thank you. Oops, it looks like I lost probably the magnet. Oh well.
I don't see it here.
It's not like
Maybe it's on the inside.
It could be inside your shirt.
No, I don't think it came off. It's nothing. It's got to be attached to the other thing.
Did you have it on your green shirt? Or?
No, I had it on here.
Oh, so it could be stuck inside.
Maybe we'll find it on the way down, Mike. Keep an eye out as we walk back.
Oh, thanks for at least seeing the name tag. I'm just gonna shed my fleece jacket here. Everybody catch their breath that needs to. Set would been still here, we could have stopped in right there at the Three Bells Pub for a pint. I would have had a gin and tonic though. Thank you for your patience on live television here. Okay, this is my wonderful assistant with the photos. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Hiding in plain sight.
Jane hiding in plain sight. One of them, just hold that hidden there for a minute.
Hidden. Let's see what it is. Nice.
Here we go.
So Mike, I have a question. This water tower here, was that part of the Sky Pool feed, water feed, or is that something different?
You know, I've never really gotten like the definitive answer on that. One of the stories, so to speak, is connected with this movie. So it's like the Goat Buttes, you know. They say that goats were mowing the lawn around here during the Craig's Country Club period, but don't know for sure. I learned in the National Park Service is that if you don't have the really great confidence on proof of a statement you're making, because anything I tell you here, a lot of you are going to go tell people and it's passed along and all that. But that's why the hills don't lie in a photograph, that's for sure. But part of the story I'll tell you in a moment is connected to this movie. So Darryl F. Zanuck was the head of 20th Century Fox, quite a well-known personality, if you will, and motion picture, movie studios, they contain two basic goals. One was the artistic endeavor of making these movies that will draw people, but the other part was it's a business. And and so you just had these studio heads to think about, we got to make money and satisfy our board, our investors, and whoever else, whatever. And so there was many clashes there with the artistic efforts versus making money and all. But anyway, Derek Zanuck had, like so many people back then in the late 30s, had seen this magnificent movie called Gone with the Wind. Still one of the all-time greatest movies ever made. And so it's just like maybe like a GM or a Ford. They see somebody come out with a new car and they, wow, we got to make something like it, but it can't look just like it. So he wanted to have his own movie that would be on a storyline like Gone with the Wind, about a family and all the challenges that are going on in that time of their lives and where they were located. And the movie was How Green Was My Valley, a novel by Richard Llewellyn, and the setting was Wales. And he initially wanted to go over there, but again, it was, as I say, World War II period. They were here in the summer of '41, so Pearl Harbor hadn't happened yet. That's still a few months away, but it'd broken out in Europe, of course. And so they had to reconsider, and however it came about, this was the one place that was suggested. Originally, a director by the name of William Wyler, William Wyler, I think it was, who was going to make the movie, but then he had this was just in the planning stages for so long that he had another commitment, and then comes in John Ford, who just, he was so good at these family settings and all, and so that was the director through this movie here. The people who have written books about their lives in the industry, one was Philip Dunn, the screenwriter for the movie, so there's good bits of information there. Maureen O'Hara, who was the lead female actress in it, and Anna Lee, who had a secondary role in it in the movie there, and then John Ford, although he didn't write this one particular biography I read, but it's a very well received one, and a man's name is Thompson, I think, Thomson. Can't think of his full name, but anyway, I had all these sources to read and get a lot of information, the set records, of course, and then the photographs. So this was Wales. The set, the Welsh mining village, call it that because it existed in that at the top of the hill behind us was the colliery, as it was known, the mine. So it took a few months to build all this. So right up this sweep of the road here in front of you all, that's where the street went up to the top. So the story that's trickled around, rumor or not, fact or rumor, is that the tank may have been put there to provide water for any rain scenes. Since this was Wales and it rained a bit more there than it did here. But one of my favorite stories for this movie is the making of it, and Daryl Vision's vision. Well, of course, Gone with the Wind was in beautiful Technicolor. Am I correct there? Right.
Great Technicolor.
Yeah, right. And so he wanted a Technicolor movie as well. His cinematographer, had a different, each one of the specialties in filmmaking, whether it be, costume design, makeup, hair, or sets, set dressing, and on and on and on, cinematography. These are all experts, if you will, in their particular fields. And it was not Zanuck's, field, but he oversaw and knew a lot about it. He would make suggestions of value. But anyway, the cinematographer said, we really should, Mr. Zanuck, shoot this, and I'm paraphrasing, shoot this in black and white. And the reason why is to give it, one of the guiding factors, important factors in filmmaking, especially if it's another period or another place, is really make you feel you're there. You're not always thinking about this consciously, you're watching the movie. And so a mining town. These men, they go up the street to the mine every morning and they go to work. Some of them probably working at night maybe. And when they come back home, they got blackened faces from that cold environment down in the mine underground there. And then you've got the colliery and the smokestacks belching black smoke. You've got that dreary times when it's cloudy in Wales. And so he said black and white be more, would contribute so much more than Technicolor. And anyway, Mr. Zanuck, we're filming this in the summer. You'll have to change the title to How Brown Was My Valley. So I love that story there. So he not only won Mr. Zanuck over, but they won a Academy Award for, back then it was known as Best Black and White. And so that was a good suggestion. In fact, I think they won something like 7 or 8 Oscars for the movie, including John Ford and the movie itself. So, yep. It's told through the memory and voice of Roddy McDowell, who kind of narrates, especially in the beginning, of the impact this had on his childhood, because he was the youngest child, too young to work in the mines, and his brothers, older brothers, worked in the mines and with the father, and they went there every day. And so it's told through his eyes and his memories of that time growing up in Wales and what he learned from it. I mean, we all have learned. Taking this view, take a moment if you want to take a photograph over there of that beautiful scene. I will mention too is that in the making of the movie, it's almost as if it stayed this way. I don't know what the vegetation was like back there, but they denuded that hillside because a part of the landscape of a coal industry location is the slag, the leftover product, and they is spread all over there. And I've read 2 stories. The one was just a lot of rocks that were splayed black, and then the real stuff being brought here. Whatever. That's what that hillside was looked like. But they had a mine shaft that did go down because the elevator seemed to see the men coming up and down out of it. And the church was right over here, I think. Over there.
Good questions, Dave.
The picture they used in the article. I usually, a lot of people tell me that, but I do it a little too often. Mentioned to me, is this the largest number I've had before, and I told him a little bit that no, we got a count of about 70 of y'all, and y'all, that comes from my mother in Arkansas. Things that carry over from your childhood. But anyway, a friend of mine, and I met in this circle of friends about movie history. His name is Harry Medved. Years ago, his older brother, Michael Medved, was on TV as a film critic and all. But Harry's in that business, so to speak. He worked in publicity at Warner Brothers, but now he's been a long time head of publicity for Fandango for sort of like the Southern California area. And he goes to, as a critic, and goes to the kind of early showings of films before they go out to all the theaters and all. But he wrote a book called Hollywood Escapes, and he's looking for people who can give him some information, and somehow he got my name, and that's how we met and all. So he knows writers and news people and all that kind of studio publicists. But anyway, he pitched an article, and this was to help promote his book, to the LA Times writer who did entertainment articles, if you will. And so she came out here. We took her on a little tour, and then she wrote an article about the ranch, which included the upcoming date of a hike that I gave. And luckily I had Brian Rooney, again the author of 3 Magical Miles, and Harry out here, and we all knew some history of the ranch. And we had people as far away as one fellow came up from San Diego. We had 225 people.
Wow.
Yeah, so look at this group. Can you imagine that? So we ultimately had to split up into 3 tours, and So like you all, have to wait for those last people to, catch up, not just talk to the first few that catch up with us. And so we made many long pauses along the way. And but yeah, that was the largest one I ever had. To imagine that was truly Moses leaving. Here briefly, I don't have any photographs, but staying with the United Kingdom, if you will, another Fox movie was known as The Yank and the RAF with Tyrone Power and Betty Grable. And there was a scene right down this path here. And it used to be, I don't know where exactly it began, when I first started coming over here, there was sort of like what I would call an Arizona crossing. They had paved with concrete, kind of a little V shape there, so that vehicles could drive across the creek there when it was low enough. And so there was a scene from The Yank and the RAF where it was taken where two of the actors are walking toward the camera, if you will, down in there. And as we get up a little further off to the left here, you're going to see a big wide open plain, and we often call that the Torpin Plain because the family who lived here, the father was the caretaker working for Fox. He with his crew, they did everything from mowing the fields to fixing fences, and they weren't in the movie business. They just were caretakers of the land, and certainly there was a request for filming somewhere. They helped out with that and their side. So the first generation, the father and wife had 3 sons, and one of the sons eventually stepped into his father's role, and then he had 3 children, and they all grew up here as children. So imagine your backyard was all of this, and when there was nobody filming, you had all these sets to play on. Besides the sky backing and tank there, the other thing that they brought over here from the studio backlot was a train. And so as we get a better view of the plain out there on the far side of it, where it starts to slope up kind of right down there at before it goes up, the tracks ran along the base there with a train. And so the kids would go out there. There was a boy and 2 girls. Actually, the boy, these are all grown people now, retired largely. He's here today helping with some watering of some oak trees, Randy Torpin. And he kind of followed after his father, just like my father was an outdoorsman, took me as a kid into the woods of upstate New York, and that's where my career had its foundation. And he went to work at 20th Century Fox too. Shows up in a more contemporary movie called Heathers.
Oh,
yes. They filmed out here.
What's the contemporary movie? Heathers.
Sometimes I get so caught up talking to somebody that I say, whoa, I almost walked right by where I was supposed to stop. This is a valuable service. Photos here I need. Sometimes a photo you find online, it's a small file size, and so it gets a little fuzzy when you blow it up. But this photograph, I should really take it out when we get down a little further here, but it was taken looking this way, if you will, but it was on probably that hillside over there. And I referenced Dr. Dolittle before with Rex Harris in 1967. And so some of it was filmed over in the UK, but some of it was shot here as well. And this was a sort of like an English estate manor that was built out there on the Torpin Plain. But you see that blue sky screen, but yeah, that would have been disastrous. That was a high enough elevation for this photo. This actually may have come from the Torpin family, come to think of it. Brian Rooney was able to connect with the daughter marina, and she had all these family photos of the kids playing around here. So lots of photos of sets and stuff. So that was right over and out in here, and you see, as I said, the sky backing and looking at the Hargreaves My Valley Hill, which is over here. And over here, it's kind of too non-distinct for all of you to see, but Frank Sinatra is a movie called Von Ryan's Express, and set in Germany, World War II period, and anyway, the studio built the scale size, almost like half size or whatever, of a mountain, and where a miniature train would be coming through it, because that was a part of the movie, a train and all. And so that fake mountain, if you will, is over there, and that would have been, in the same area where the sky backing was located. Okay. So what I kind of walked past there, but it's still visible. Yeah, just a little bit hidden, if you will. So this is, again, forgive me, a smaller one, but so you just look right over here, toward the water tank on the hill, but just look right here in the foreground. Can you see where the land just slopes up a little bit? Right there. Mm-hmm. Well, that was purposely done by that, and this is what maybe the Torpin family, the caretaker and his staff would do if they asked, oh, can you level off that piece of ground over there? We want to build a set there. So this was in the 1960s, 66, and interestingly, I'll tell you as I wrap up this story, this movie, how I've determined this was used often in later years in the 70s for a TV show. But they built the China Light mission for the Sand Pebbles with Steve McQueen and Candice Bergen. And this was set during like a Civil War in China period. And the U.S. Navy had gone over there, and Steve McQueen was a sailor. He's one of my all-time favorite actors. So that was built right there, the China Light mission. Mostly the scenes in the movie were inside. It was a square building, but it had a big courtyard in the center of it, and that's where the filming largely took place there. And of course, in history, years ago, there were missions around the world where missionaries would go. Usually Catholic, but a TV show that learned and shot out here, but I didn't know it was that much. But luckily, I'm getting it through Netflix, and that was Kung Fu with David Carradine. And so there's all these scenes where there's constantly through every TV show there's always a flashback to when he was being trained as a Shaolin monk. With this, these two particular men, especially one who was giving him very good advice for his future, and a flashback, and you'd see them, at the Shaolin, I don't know formally what it'd be called, but anyway, one day I'm watching a show, an episode, and the camera's sort of like up higher, and it'll come down and it'll zoom in. All of a sudden, I'm seeing the hills right over here. They were using the interior courtyard for a lot of those scenes, so they were out here a lot. So kind of staying with that same setting of being over, the China region of the world. Let's see, even one of the Hollywood's notorious actors for playing, sort of like the criminal side of movies, tough guy, was Humphrey Bogart, but he came out here dressed like a priest. And what we're going to do, this is going to be a little challenge. Those of you who are still with us here, haven't decided to drop out, because I might go a little bit beyond 12, and sometimes people say, "Oh, I got an appointment." So, but anyway, we'll stop by the visitor center at the very end, and that's where we have a small little theater area, and I mean small, so you almost have to take turns, but we have a continually running film clip reel there, if you will, video that was professionally done for Harry, and it's got titles for every movie that comes up in all of the year. And you'll actually get to see a great scene where Humphrey Bogart's, tough guy persona comes out. They get a kick out of it, because I don't think a priest would have done this. But anyway, the storyline is that this is end of World War II. He was a pilot and he got shot down, and I can't remember exactly, but I guess he just didn't want to go back to the military life, and he stayed there, and he started working with a warlord. And then he got eventually, not to like this guy and what he was doing, so he kind of skipped away. And but they were pursuing him, and he came upon a dying priest who was like going to his new mission assignment. And Bogart kind of was there in his final moments, and then he felt he could go into disguise and dressed up like a priest and went to the mission. So it's good to see Humphrey Bogart giving a sermon. That's another first. And then one of my all-time favorite movies is set in China, if you will, Hong Kong. And the massive tree of many branches here is long gone, but before the fire, it helps, kind of us pinpoint, the location. But from photographs, again, you can match it up. Brian and I came across the trunk, the lower half of it over there in the field, but the fire burned it up because it was already quite dry and dead. But the movie was "Love is a many splendid day, like the April," that whole. I love that song, but there it is, off camera here. The stars are Jennifer Jones, who's playing the Eurasian lead. Like me, kind of, stepped forward and took on being, the film researcher and all. His name is Dennis Liff, L-I-F-F, and he's the historian for Iverson, and he actually has some paperwork that came from, I guess, the last active Iverson managing the ranch and all. But yeah, he knows those rocks so well. He's got names for many of them. So I want to stop here. Not that we need the shade, but that structure there, it's so unique, and it's the shape and no windows. And this is the only structure left in the park, not counting the Blandings house, because that wasn't Fox production. The only structure left that Fox built here. And this was the ammunition storage right here, explosives. So that's a very heavy door. Now, we actually found in our docent files, sorry if you're trying to get around us. Anyway, I just don't know the real story. These maintenance people are not here anymore, because it's going back probably to the late 70s. The park was acquired as a park in 1974. So it was sold by Fox to the state, and then 2 years later, in 76, it opened up as a park. So in that later 70s, early 80s, I found a picture in our archives, if you will. We have a lot of slides. Anybody know what they are? And anyway, there's like 3 maintenance men here, and one of them's got a jackhammer, and they're just, I don't know, like, did they not have the key to get in there? But there's no door handle on that door anymore. There are some young people who get in there and kind of open it up because of curiosity killed the cat, if you will. By the way, does anybody know what hantavirus is? Yeah. If you don't, hantavirus, it can be a deadly disease, and it's connected with mice and their droppings. And if you get in an enclosed space with not much ventilation, and you're walking around and maybe kicking up a little dust, that gets up into your nostrils, and it's serious business. But a lot of young people don't know that. The same with that water tank up there. But anyway, a very heavy steel door there. So all concrete block, but in the design, the material on the flat roof is very thin. So if explosives accidentally went off in there, they just shoot up without much, resistance and go up that way instead of so much out that way. So, yeah, that's what that thing is there. So I apologize for those of you, because we're not going to the MASH site. It just adds too much to this. We wouldn't be getting back to the parking lot until probably closer to 2 o'clock or something. So, I have a larger group. We have to wait a little bit longer when we stop for everybody to catch up. But you go up that road there, like at points, it's about 1.8 miles. Unfortunately, the seasonal bridge is taken out that crosses the creek up there because the original one got washed out. This is where my New York accent or whatever comes in, because I say wash and instead of wash. And anyway, so much rain came down after the fire that the water, is just going to go, and the 12 culverts were just not handling it all to get the volume through there. So the water's going over top of this concrete bridge, and it went around to the far side, just ate away the dirt until it was down to the bottom of the creek on either side there. So I know people find their own way across it and they put up logs or whatever, but anyway, that makes it a little more difficult that I wouldn't want to be taking you up that way with the MASH site. Also, if you go up that way, you can come, which I have a photograph at the top of the hill, is where the ape village was built for Planet of the Apes on the right there. And we have a recently installed panel at the site there to help you know about that. And that's also, across from that, there's a little dirt road. It goes down to the lake, Century Lake. It was first Craig's Lake. They're the ones that created it from the stream there and pounded it and made a lake. It's gotten much smaller. It was always long like a finger lake, so longer than it was wide, and it's shrunken because of natural processes of sediment going down from rains and all that, and so the depth is also lessening over time. But it's still there, and that dirt road takes you down to the end where the dam is and all. So at this point, we're going to go over this way. Oh, by the way, it is, I think it's the rock pool's over here, of course, where we're going next, but it's 1.8 miles to the MASH site. But if you left it from the main parking lot, round trip, it's about 5 miles.
And what's Reagan Ranch?
Oh, Reagan, thank you. Somebody else asked me about that. So in 1951, Ronald Reagan was at the last years of his acting career. And he had, as a young man in the Midwest, gotten into horses, and that was something like I am with movies, and many of you have your own passions and hobbies, if you will. And so once he got out here and made some money, he had a ranch over in the western San Fernando Valley area or somewhere, and closer to here. And then in 1951, he purchased approximately 400 acres of land here. Some of it was on the other side of Mulholland. It's at the western corner of the ranch. I think you can get around there, sorry. Yeah, okay, yeah. Part the ways, part the sea. So Reagan wanted a more country ranch, I suppose, maybe getting developed over there where he was. And so we had a docent here who just had the greatest skill in research. And he's moved on, everybody moves on, I'm moving on. But he got into doing historical research, and so Reagan wasn't even into politics at the time. He was there until 1966, and after he sold it to Fox, and they expanded their ranch that includes his acreage there, within a year or so, he ran for governor of California, and the rest, they say, is history and all. So he was into politics. He was the president at end of his political career there. So remember the politics side, because this was just 6 degrees of separation. It's unbelievable in this fact, is that the man that our former docent discovered, because he was familiar and experienced with doing title searches, because he was a cartographer and he made trail maps, and he made one for us here. And so he went down to where the records are kept, and he started to do a title search for Reagan Ranch. Well, lo and behold, the owner of the ranch, he had 2 sons, and one of them became notable in the Watergate. J.R. Haldeman. So his father owned the ranch and built some of the buildings there that, of course, Reagan had on his ranch. And this was more just a getaway place again. He had as much nicer place in Bel Air, Beverly Hills. But the interesting fact that this was at the time he met Nancy Reagan. So when they were dating, he would bring her out here because he wanted to share his love of horses. And he thought there was no better place than to be on a horse. He just loved it. And so he did a lot of, English saddle jumping out there. And there was an early TV show local in Los Angeles. I don't remember the name of it, but this man went around to celebrities' homes and visited and interviewed them. Just like, was it Edward R. Murrow did that for a while? But anyway, I found it over at the Reagan Library, and I was able to purchase a copy. Drop off, and I don't mean that literally. On the side. So I just want to alert you that when we go forward from this point, things are going to narrow out, and the surface is not smooth like this. There'll be lots of rocks around that you have to. So watch your step. Don't get so engrossed in talking to your friend or your family, because that's easy when you're just talking. I've done that more than once. So just really watch your step. Likely you'll find some other people down there, but so there's not a lot of space there, but enough so that I can do my thing, if you will. Okay, so we'll stop partway down there because I want to point out another feature from Planet of the Apes. Actually, a sequel. I think it was Beneath. There's Beneath. There's Escape, and there's 5 of them all together.
Oh wow.
Okay, and then a TV show as well. If you notice right here on this rock, you see those lines kind of. That was drilling in there, I guess. And somewhere I always have to find it again. There's an anchor bolt somewhere, because when the Hunt family built the house that's now our visitor center, that was probably sometime in the 1930s, and there was no bridge going over there. So right from here over to these rocks right over here was this. Can you hold that for a moment? Footbridge. And of course, Hollywood made use of it.
And that's what washed away?
No, it was taken down probably by either the park, I suppose, because it had been there for quite a while, probably a good, 30, 40 years and stuff, and they didn't want people going on it. This is before the bridge was built. But one of the more notable films that used it was called The FBI Story with Jimmy Stewart. So he works for the FBI, and he goes somewhere in South America, looking for, I guess, the culprit. And they walk across the bridge, he and his guide.
So when they lived there, that was the only way across?
Yeah.
So
you couldn't drive
groceries,
across.
everything.
Yeah. Right.
What are all of the holes in the rocks on both sides?
Well, some of it's natural because other rocks, smaller rocks, had come out of it.
Fell out.
Yeah.
This
Over
side
time.
looks like it's gonna fall off.
Yeah, you can see it's just a mixture. It's sort of like a cemetery rock here, where this might have all been underwater, quite likely, years ago.
Do you know how the pine trees got here?
Pardon me?
The pine trees that were just back
Yeah,
there?
that was Craig Country Club. They did a little landscape planting here. In fact, they even planted some redwood trees, which unfortunately are not surviving. They need a lot more ocean moisture coming in here. We're a little too warm down here, but yeah, that's what they did, yeah. We're going to visit the pad, which is not on top of that rock, but behind it up there. Okay, let me get ahead of you here. don't record this.
You drinking water?
Excuse me while I have a gin and tonic.
Whatever keeps you going, Mike.
Yeah.
Do a little entertainment while we're here.
Hmm.
We're going to go up top, but not that way. All right, so as I mentioned, if you all heard me, there were sequels of Planet of the Apes. I don't remember in the actual sequential order by title, but there's Beneath, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, just to name two others. So in Beneath this Planet of the Apes, in 1970, that may have been the right one right after Planet of the Apes. There's this significant scene here. So there's sort of like a separation of classes amongst the primates. So you had the apes, as I will call them. They were sort of like the army. And then you had sort of the working class, and they look more like maybe toward chimpanzee, if you will. That's Roddy McDowell and Kim Hunter. They were the kind of the cultural history people. They were interested in interviewing, Charlton Heston and all that. And then there was really the leaders, and I always refer to them as almost like the Supreme Court because there was only so many of them, and they were more toward orangutan, but they had the blondish hair, if you will. So there's a scene here where the ape, that Supreme Council was seated on the rocks. In fact, let me move over here a little bit. You see this one, flat one right up there where somebody's got their jackets on. They were up on top of that, and they even dressed up the suspension bridge over to the side there, and they were having sort of like a assemblage of their people. They're right here. Yeah, really, I don't know if it's online somewhere where you can see that special documentary of sorts that Roddy McDowell narrates, but it's really quite fascinating if you can catch it. Everybody you can see that okay? So we're traveling to different countries. This is just, I guess, planet Earth many, many years later here. I love it, the end of the scene there toward the end when he, sees the Statue of Liberty sticking out of the sand, and he goes, "My God!" We're on planet Earth. They just thought there's some other universe. So that pivotal scene at the ending there, that was filmed locally as well. And that was down and around Point Doom there, is where that took place. And then they end up going back to, when they're going there, essentially they're going through Lake Powell, Lake Mead area there, and then they come to the beach. So they leave here, they go to, Nevada, if you will, and then they come back here. So. Thank you very much. This is one of the largest spaces, just so everybody kind of take what they're doing. Doing okay there?
Yeah.
We really only got one more little uphill. It's actually, I don't know, it's a little bit shorter. I want to say how green is my valley one. Might be a little bit steeper, but again, you're doing great. I mean, I have my other, aging ills that are largely not affecting my hiking, and I remember the day so vividly when I had to tell my father that the doctor said he should not drive anymore. Oh, yeah. And that just, took the wind out of him. But I worry about the day when I can't hike anymore. Because I can always stay home and watch old movies. We don't have many larger, if you will, open spaces, so we're just kind of wait till everybody catches up right here. You ever notice when you driving in more, from the open, I'll say just spacious areas into these kind of canyons or little valleys, or here like this, you can feel it cooler, if you will. So right around the corner here, that big boulder is where we'll really get to see more close up of the rock pool. So this is, again, this speaks of the diversity of the landscape. It's just magnificent of what you can see here. It's sort of like a mini Yosemite with all its natural features, that's for sure. And we had a paper docent newsletter in the early years. I think the late 70s is when it really got started. We got a lot of the original copies and all. In fact, we got our editor here today of the online version for the docents. But anyway, she wrote about the rock pool, and I guess there were still visitors coming here, but not in the numbers that you would see today. I mean, if you came down here on a summer day of a weekend, it could be like 100 people down here. But anyway, she wrote this beautiful little story that I got Justin to put in one of the newsletters about coming here after everybody left, about dusk, and seeing the wildlife come back. The peace and the tranquility and the solitude of it, birds fluttering in, maybe a deer coming down and getting a sip of water. And we experienced that again during the COVID shutdown before we opened the park up again. The animals are just going, where's everybody? It's quiet. Go over here again, And so, yeah, they had that brief period of having the land back to themselves. Anyway, it's a special little place, and the landscape's history, and as I say, its diversity of habitat. You'd call this like a riparian area for water. The rock pool evidently has a spring underground because it just never gets dry. It never dries up. It may get lowered a little bit, and we'll point that out with that Mary Pickford film and the picture I have of that, because she's sitting on a rock, and it's out in the water, so you'll see the level of the water is a little different from back then. Okay, so watch your step as we go up around the last little corner here.